Good evening. We're running a tad bit behind schedule, so I would like to call this meeting to order, please. Can I have approval of the agenda? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I have Pledge of Allegiance, please, Dr. Baskin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is announcements and recognitions, please.
Good evening. Enrollment for 4K and 5K students is now open and runs through April 13th. 4K and 5K are both full-day programs. Beat the summer lines and enroll today. There are still opportunities to visit some of our buildings this week. Maryland Converse will be hosting expos this Thursday at 5 p.m. In addition, our intermediate schools are also in the process of hosting expos. McNeil held a successful expo last week. The remaining intermediate expos will take place in April. For more information, visit our website, www.beloitschools.net/enrollment. Summer school registration is now open. Families can pick up a registration form in their school office, stop by the Central Enrollment Office in Colac, or visit the website, www.beloitschools.net/summer school. Next week is spring break, therefore there is no school March 26th through the 30th. Classes will resume on Monday, April 2nd. Please note that the Colac Center will be closed to the public during this time. Visitors must call ahead. The board would like to wish everyone a safe and restful spring break, and I will now turn it over to our Public Information Officer for a special announcement.
Thank you, Wendy. I am Jennifer Thompson, the Public Information Officer, here with some very exciting news for the school district. We are very excited to share with our community and our stakeholders that the Board of Education will be restructuring their board committees. The restructure will align board committees with the School District of Beloit's strategic plan. In addition, the committees would allow community members, staff, and students the opportunity to serve on committees and be a part of the decision-making process for the board. It's very exciting that we get to involve our stakeholders in our board committees. So the 5 committees will be students, staff, fiscal, infrastructure, and communications. So the duties of the committees will represent the 5 pillars of our strategic plan, and we encourage all of our stakeholders to get involved. So if you've ever sat back and said, why don't they do fill in the blank? Or maybe they should try fill in the blank. I wish school district did whatever. This is your opportunity as a community member, as a parent, as a family member, as a student, as a staff member, to step up and serve on one of the 5 committees. So the board will be releasing more information about the application and selection process yet this month, but we wanted to give you that little teaser so that you all could get excited about joining us in this important work to educate the 7,000 students in our district. It is our plan that the committees will begin their work in May. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Follow us on our website. Check us out for more information about the restructured board committees, as well as all of our amazing upcoming events and activities. That's the end of announcements. So we'll move right into recognitions. It's one of my favorite parts of the board meetings each month. No offense to the agenda. But we love our students, and we love the opportunity to celebrate all that they are doing. Now, unfortunately, our Beloit Memorial Jazz Orchestra is unable to be with us. Now, we're going to be sad, but they're doing something totally cool. They leave first thing tomorrow morning for New Orleans. So, yay! See, yeah, there we go. We got some excitement. But we were going to recognize them tonight, but we will invite them back at another board meeting because we are so, yes, ma'am.
We do have a member here.
We do have a member?
Adrian Savit.
Oh, Adrian. Okay, can everybody applaud for Adrian? So Adrian, you can take it back to your friends in the BMJO that we're talking about you tonight. So we'll officially recognize you, but Here's the deal. They are one of 15 jazz bands from across the country, not just out of the state, but across the nation, who were selected to participate in the Essentially Ellington Jazz Competition in New York City. This is a huge deal for our students. They are incredible. I will say that I had the opportunity of watching them in the Biff Festival when they provided the music and the soundtrack to the silent film, and it is completely evident the love that our community has for these students, and they represent Beloit so amazingly well. I'd like to plug, on behalf of Mr. Behrens and all these students, that the trip to New York is kind of costly. So it is approximately $38,000 to send this band, not only the bodies, but also the instruments, to New York City for this competition. So they're getting close to their goal of that $38,000, but they still have about $5,000 to go. So this is your personal invitation for everyone in the room and everyone watching online, everyone that will tune in later. They have a fundraising concert coming up at the Beloit Club on April 13th. So we encourage you to get out there and buy tickets, make a donation, and help all of our students in the BMJO make it to the Big Apple. So more about them coming later. So we have more students. I love that we are really celebrating the front porch of our district tonight. I think our music students and our athletic students really show some of the wonderful opportunities that are available to our students here in the district. And more importantly, as Coach Vogel chimed in, that people watching at home might not have heard, is that our students are involved in lots of different things. So they're not just musicians, they're not just athletes. And so tonight I want to invite our athletic director, Joel Beard, up to the podium, because we have some amazing student athletes who had incredible seasons, and we'd like to recognize them tonight. You go right ahead.
Good evening. First, we'd like to recognize our hockey team. Our girls hockey team had an outstanding season this year, which I think is pretty impressive to win 20 games in a high school season. That is very impressive. They're only allowed to play 22 in the regular season, and they won 20. So I think that's pretty impressive. They also made it to the sectional final for a third year in a row, coming very close to making it to state. A couple pucks off the post. We make those, we probably win, so it could have gone either way. But they had an outstanding season. We have 2 student athletes part of that co-op. I like to bring them up. The first one is Gabby Traver. And our second student athlete is Kylie Evans. We good? Oh.
Yes, we are.
So moving forward, I could not do it justice the season that Lindsell Burks had as a wrestler making it to state. So I'm going to bring Coach Jacobson up here to explain.
All right. Thanks for having me. So Lindsell Burks currently at the end of this last season ranked 7th all-time on our total wins list. We've been wrestling. This is the 70th year we've had wrestling in Beloit. He went 36-5 this season. Out of the 6 regular season tournaments he went to, he won 5 of them. He didn't surrender a single point until after Christmas break, which is unheard of. And his sectional match to get to state was one of the all-time greatest matches I've ever witnessed. The week before, the kid from Milton beat him by 15 points. And we were looking ahead and knew that he was eventually going to have to go through that kid to get to state. And Lindsell ends up pinning him in the first period of sectionals, and crowd goes wild. It was crazy. So it's been a pleasure coaching Lindsell, and I know that he has aspirations to represent Beloit in college when he leaves here in a couple of months. So we're excited for him, and thanks for 4 great years.
It would not be athletic recognition night here at the Board of Education if we did not invite our very own Coach Dick Vogel to the podium, who is always very eloquent when he is explaining. He's very passionate about his students. So Joel and I can't do it justice the way he does. So Coach Vogel, can you come up here and talk about your boys? He says, come on. If you guys want to stand here, that way the camera can pick you up.
Believe it or not, the two tall guys are freshmen. This is my 37th year coaching swimming in Beloit, 32nd as the head coach. In fact, Benji, who's on our coaching staff, was a state qualifier for Beloit back in 1992. And so we kind of keep them in the program. In fact, I also have to thank Kim Waite, who can't be here tonight. She graduated in 96 and swam for Beloit and myself as well. We had an outstanding season this year. We knew we were going to have a good year when you have 10 seniors on the boys team and 22 overall with the girls. A lot of graduation parties in June. But it was a great year. We had beat Sun Prairie ever since they weren't a co-op anymore with Madison Fall. We beat them for the first time ever since they became an independent program. And the coach came up to us after and says, "You guys are pretty good this year." And I said, "Well, no surprise if you've been paying attention, but I can't tell you how much fun it was coaching these guys. We got quite a few seniors here tonight, and I always say that I have the best job in Beloit because I get to be with these kids since basically they started swimming. For some of them it's 6th grade, some of them before that through our swimming lesson program, and then luckily in lifeguard class we picked up Kyle Raisbeck a couple of years ago. So you find them everywhere, but what's really cool is how these kids become a team and blend together and actually become a family. And we ended up with a winning season this year in dual meets. We won the Manitowoc Invite and the Rock County Challenge again this year. We had several swimmers make honorable mention all conference. We ended up qualifying all three of our relays and Ben Saladar in the 100 butterfly. The team members here today are Anthony Jacobson. He's a freshman, broke our freshman record in the 200 IM this year. Jim Santos made it back to state a second time, was a member of our 400 free relay. Nathan Sill, who will be one of our, forgot that Jim was also one of our captains this year. Nathan Sill will be a senior next year. He'll be one of our team captains. This is his 3rd year in a row qualifying for state. And I think he's like the 5th fastest 50 freestyler in the school's history. Behind him is Ben Saladar, who's a freshman this year, qualified for state in the 100 butterfly. There we go. Kyle Raisbeck, who I said we found in lifeguard class, and when he was a sophomore. And this was his 2nd year going back to state. He's a member of our 200 free relay, which is the 2nd fastest in school's history. Will Koblikar, yes, his mother's sitting right over there, also made state this year. He's also a member of that 200 free relay. And next to him is Adrian Savich, made it to state his 3rd year in a row. And again, is one of the fastest swimmers in the school's history, individually as well as also one of our better butterflyers as well. These kids did a lot of great things. We're going to miss the seniors, but one of the nice things is that because of our middle school program and our USA program, and I got to also thank Mr. DeCoke and Lisa Moore, who are middle school coaches, for these kids come up. They know the expectation. They know, what it takes. They learn the value of hard work, just like all the athletes here at Beloit Memorial, and it pays off for them. A lot of these guys are going on to college. Some of them might be swimming, some may not, but that doesn't matter. It's what the value that they gained through sports here at Beloit Memorial, because most of these guys also did other sports. I know Anthony's playing baseball right now. Jim played volleyball. So did Ben Saladar and Kyle, and I know Will ran cross country and track, and Adrian plays volleyball, and I think tennis. All right. And Jim, you're going to play golf this year. All right. So they're multi-sport athletes. You know, Adrian's in the jazz band. We also have another swimmer here on our girls swim team. And she also is in jazz band too. So a lot of these kids do a lot of multiple things here at Beloit Memorial. They're not just this or that. Not one thing defines who they are. And that's what makes these kids so great. And our team GPA this year for the varsity, just to give you a heads up on that, is a 3.65. So we're real proud of our academics as well. In fact, that will win them the silver award, and it'll come out later. Also, our girls were a 3.77 this year, which gave them the gold award for the 13th year in a row. So we're real proud of those things. So I can't say any more about these kids because they know how hard they work. They do 4 or 5 hours a day in practice, and plus go to school and do all kinds of other great things. So thank you very much for having us here tonight.
As we congratulate these students, I also want to say thank you to their coaches, to their teachers who support them, and more importantly, I'd like to say thank you to the families at home that make sacrifices that allow our students to participate in extracurriculars. It's very wonderful what they do for our district.
Thank you. I would be remiss not to thank coaches. I am the child of a coach, and I know what kind of long hours coaches put in. All of you do wonderful, wonderful work. You really bring a lot to our community. I especially want to thank Mr. Vogel. He's had all of my kids, and I'm not quite sure where they'd all be without them. And I want to thank all of you for the great work you do, not just in sports but in your academics. It's very difficult to balance both, but it's a huge life lesson. So thank you both all, and congratulations.
Good evening. I just want to say thank you to all of the students, and congratulations. You're really shining examples of what we look at when we talk about when we discuss a student athlete. I also want to say thank you to the coaches and Mr. Vogel, and thanks for 37 years of service. Yes.
I'm just going to quick echo that. Thank you to the students who represent us and make us all Beloit proud. And Coach Vogel, I got to call you out too. Coaches teach not only athletic skills but life skills as well, and we appreciate that. Case in point, my son is diving for the U.S. Navy in the ocean. I worry about him a lot less because Coach Vogel not only taught him how to swim, but attention to detail and perseverance. So it's the bigger life skills that count as much, and that you all will take with you as you go on to college and impact lives far beyond Beloit. So thanks for making us so proud.
If I could say, actually this would be my last time up here saying I want to compliment the athletes for a great job, not only in your sports, but also academically. And Mr. Vogel, you know I have the utmost respect for you. And I was just sitting here thinking, sir, when you started with the school district, I was 11 years old.
You were in my health class with Denny Creamer.
All right, let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you, students, for coming tonight.
All right, I am now at that point in the meeting where I will ask if there are any citizens or delegations that wish to address the board. Okay. I need to read this little piece, and then we'll let you get going. Members of the audience, the Board of Education is now at the place on the agenda where we will receive public comments from individuals or delegations on areas of interest that are not on the agenda. The Board of Education will generally not respond or act on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Appropriate items will be referred to administration or one of the board's committees. Persons wishing to speak on one of the posted agenda items may do so as items are called by the board president. While the board and district district welcome public comments, we as a board also must ask that you exercise care in your comments that relate specifically to district employees or persons connected with the school system. In order to protect the rights of these individuals and in the interest of complying with open meetings law, on prior posting of items for consideration at this meeting, the board reserves the right to end comment on such topics. The use of specific names of district personnel may lead to legal liability on the part of the speaker. The board would also remind the public that the board has existing procedures in place to dispose of legitimate complaints against staff members and persons related to the system. Persons desiring to speak should complete the public comment card, hand it to the board secretary, and then proceed to the podium. You will then need to clearly state your name and address for the record before beginning your comments. Each person is asked to speak no more than 3 minutes unless you are using an interpreter.
Good evening. My name is Dorothy Harrell. I reside at 2284 Boulder Court here in Beloit. And I am going to use a name to start because I want to congratulate Dr. Williams on being chosen as a finalist in Oshkosh. I think that reflects very highly on our district and on him, his background, and his skills and experiences. So congratulations, Dr. Williams. I also wanted to mention 2 other things, and one of them was what Mrs. Thompson just talked about, is the board is now going to invite the public to be a part of committees. Having just served on a search committee that was a board-appointed committee and was represented by a board member, thank you, Mrs. Sanchez, administrator, other people from the community staff, it was really nice for me to hear that our work was going to be validated this evening, because it won't do any good for the public to be on these committees that you are going to assign in the future if the work is going to be done but not validated or accepted. So thank you for that. The last thing that I want to address is one of the things that I heard over in room 106 that disturbed me greatly, and I think it's on my radar screen, it's on my agenda, and that is the possibility that there may have occurred in the hiring process some form of injustice or racial discrimination. That is a red flag to me, and I need to raise it publicly and know that we will be monitoring that very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening. Wanda Sloan, 2709 North Robinson Street, Beloit, Wisconsin. This comment will be made on behalf of the Beloit branch of the NAACP. Past practice of the school board has been to promote the persons who serve as assistant superintendent after providing them the opportunity to learn on the job and gain the needed experience to secure the position permanently. The precedent has been established. What changed? Why is it that a person of color, specifically African American and male, who is qualified, dependable, experienced, and has served in the capacity both as assistant and as interim superintendent, during the superintendent's absence, find that the hiring process changes? When there is a vacancy due to the resignation of the district superintendent, why would the board pivot at this time and hire a search firm when that process was not utilized in the hiring of the previous 2 district superintendents? We of the Beloit branch NAACP understand that the search firm of choice has been selected and respect the need to move forward with that decision. It is now our expectation that you, along with the selected firm, will conduct a search that results in bringing forth candidates that reflect our community's multi-diversities, a search that is inclusive and transparent, and above all, ensures that all candidates brought forward prove that they possess and can demonstrate the critical skill of cultural competence. I close with a quote from the great Benjamin Mays, a mentor and a coach to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He who starts out behind in this great race of life must forever remain behind or run faster than the man in front. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
My name is Martha Dunnigan, and I live at 1935 South Park Avenue. speaking in public is not real easy for me. I could play my cello in public, but I will not be anywhere near as eloquent as Wanda Sloan. But I would sincerely hope, now that this process has been established, that this that this company is going to be in charge of the search, that they certainly would include the present, the interim superintendent, as absolutely, unbelievably qualified. He has done so many good things for the district since he was hired. 3 years ago, I think it was 3 years ago, as a former educator myself, I still sub in the district. I'm a retired school teacher. It is so important to have someone who knows our students, and also I think that he has been a role model. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Going once? All right. I'm going to move on to the next item, which is superintendent's reports to the board, please.
Good evening again. At this point in time, we have an update from the ad hoc committee achievement update. That will be followed by an equity update by Ms. Tasha Bell, and she will couple the equity update with the equality committee report.
Good evening, everyone. One of the things that we have been steadfast focused in the District of Beloit is the achievement gap and improving the outcomes for all students. I want to introduce someone who we hired on early this year. This is Mrs. Rachel Elliott, who is here to, did I do that? Yes, I did. Rochelle Elliott.
He's working on it. It's all good.
I've been perfect for about 3 months.
You have that.
Mrs. Rochelle Elliott, who serves as our Director of Early Literacy, and we are so proud to have her join our district as well as serve in the capacity of this new role. Without further ado, she's going to share some information related to all the work that she has been doing in the community to really make partnerships and connections and to build relationships with all of our partners out there to really focus on early literacy and to improve outcomes for kids. So without further ado.
Thank you. I've worked really hard because some of you know I get quite lengthy and windy with my passion about early literacy. So 5 minutes. So, hold on, where'd it go? Okay, I might have to go over there. So who is the early literacy program for? We always need to go back for, it is our littlest learners in the community. That is who we're looking to help, and their families. So when I'm out there, I'm really looking at 4 avenues of early literacy that I'm looking for families: early development and well-being, early learning, parenting, and policy and advocacy to help not only our littlest learners, but the best thing you can do for your birth to 3 is to help their families. Why? Because 80% of the brain is made between 0 and 3. 90% is made between 0 and 5. So those early years are essential. We've got a 32 million word gap between families based on income, and this is across the board. So how do we work with families to give them a serve and return strategies to help so they don't have that 32 million word gap? These are some other stats that I really get out to the community. You guys have seen these. That achievement gap starts in the toddler years. And once that achievement gap starts, it's really hard to catch that up. We can do that, but it takes intensive time and intervention. Early intervention is the key. Why? Because we want to get kids ready for school. It's just not about the academic piece. It's also about the relationships that they have. It's about their emotions. It's about the curiosity. It's about all of those things that help them get ready to enter the school system. We talked about today with Dr. Depeche Navaria that investing in early childhood has the highest rate of investment. For every $1 spent, you get between $4 and $9 back on the investment. This is the seat, the Children's Empowerment Through Education, the first 2,000 days, and really letting, and I gotta say that this terminology has been a hard change for me, that kids are human capital, and that we need to promote our human capital to help them and their families, because when they have better early literacy skills, their reading is better, their writing is better, their math is better, their health is better, we have better graduation rates, self-efficiencies, higher salaries, and less crime. So for the overall, it is the best thing for our community to be investing in early childhood education. Why is it essential to work with families? Because families matter. They are their first and most important teacher. Even when they come to us, they're only with us about 12% of the time. Now, I've got some teachers that say, nope. I've got somebody at least 25% of the time. Nope, 12% of the time. And they're away from us 55% of the time. So how are we working with the different members of their family and their community to help them with their education and the different strategies they need? One thing that has been proven is when you work with families and you get families with the strategies, kids come to school with better skills and better strategies. I've been doing a lot of listening sessions, getting out there. What are the hopes and dreams for Beloit? What do we need? What do we want? And what are we committed to do? I've also been really talking with what are the realities of our families? Why? Somebody said, well, books are cheap. Why can't they buy them? Books are expensive. They are. And when families are really looking at how am I going to get food on the table? How am I going to get places, my car and transportation and rent, those are the type of struggles that our families are having. So what are we doing in the school district of Beloit? Part of it is I'm having preschool play dates. I'm bringing families in, coaching them on the serve and return, as when you talk with your child, you wait for them to talk with you, and we go back and forth. And we do those in fun and energetic, and we're reading books, and we're just really having a good time, but we're learning while we're doing that. Also co-partnering with other initiatives around the community, and really getting everybody involved. And this is where the co-partnerships come into play, and especially our new Beloit Literacy for Life. We just had Dr. Navaria here and about 250 individuals at a luncheon today, where we're really getting the entire community around how do we really change the culture of Beloit. We are readers, we are thinkers, we are learners, and we are all in this together. This is not just the school district taking responsibility for this. This is everyone. And, really talking about who is it that we need at the table, what can partners do, and just some other resources that are out there for that are pre-created that businesses can use, and we can get things around the community. And getting the health system on board in any way that they, because they are the front line of working with families, and there's a possibility of maybe coming back with a program called Reach Out and Read, or where they get books out to the families and they're coaching them on that serve and return and the importance of that bonding piece and literacy with families, and really getting the message out across the board. And I think I did use my 5 minutes, sorry. But really, how do we get families to hold books and be happy? That is the essential piece. Thank you. And again, that's what this program is for, our littlest learners in the community.
Rochelle, I just want to publicly thank you. Today was an awesome event. I want to publicly thank anyone out in the community who took the time from their lunch today to attend with us, to step forward and to volunteer to help with this initiative. It was an excellent event, and I think we're right on track with doing what we want to do, which is to change the culture of Beloit and really talk about what do we need to make sure that our kids come to school prepared and ready to go to that next level of literacy, so giving them those early language skills that they all deserve to have. So thank you. Excellent job. I know it was a lot of hard work for both of you, and very well received and very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. I would like to share with you our equity report. This month we led a diversity training for Visit Beloit and tourism and attraction agencies, and that was held out at the DC Estate Winery. It's a monthly series that Visit Beloit will be continuing on. I also led a professional development session on how to engage all parents for our secretaries and administrative assistants. The Aldridge MEO students attended a Milwaukee Bucks game on March 9th. On March 5th, we hosted a screening of the movie A Shot in the Dark, which is a documentary that explores a basketball team from Chicago, and it talks about the real-life consequences of growing up in neighborhoods that are not the best. We hosted it with our boys basketball teams from the high school, and we actually brought in one of the coaches, Mr. Lou Adams, to have some conversations with our boys. It was a wonderful event. We continued to work with the Wisconsin RTI Center and hosted Read Your Heart Out celebrations at Hackett on February 23rd and also at Merrill on February 28th. And for those of you that are not familiar with Read Your Heart Out, it is a celebration of African American literature. So you focus on the African American community. And both events were super well attended within our community. We are partnering with the Fellas Lifestyle magazine to feature men in the city of Beloit. Our recruitment efforts are ongoing. That is it for the equity report.
I have a question.
Yes.
Will you all do something later about that resounding movie, The Black Panther, later on with the students? It's powerful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Saw you at the theater.
Okay. So eventually with our students, I know other districts are doing it. Are you all going to look into something like that? Because I think that there's a number of approaches you can address that with.
Absolutely. Thank you for the suggestion.
You're welcome.
All right, on to the Equality Committee report. Our Equality Committee meeting was held on Monday, March 12th. Vicki Brown, who is the Racial Justice Coordinator for the YWCA, presented on the Race to Equity. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Race to Equity, you may have seen it a few years back, focused on Dane County. And it was the report that partnered with the Annie Casey Foundation, and it talked about the life of Black people in the state of Wisconsin. So now the YWCA is partnering to do that here in Rock County. So she presented that information to the Equality Committee. And the presentation focused on equity, an equity project to engage, educate, and motivate Rock County to advance social and public policy to improve the health and well-being of all. And during that meeting, they also called the Equality Committee to action to partner with them to move ahead as they start doing the data dig for the Rock County project. Night of Distinction will be May 4th. It will be held at the Eclipse Center, and we will honor a teacher, a non-teaching staff, a parent, 2 students, and a volunteer from each of our school buildings. And so that is an event that we do encourage everyone at home watching to make sure that they attend. It's an awesome event. This will be our 2nd year doing it.
Mrs. Bell, this will be my last time before the committee and my last business meeting. And I just want to publicly compliment you for your professionalism. I've watched you grow in this position. I've watched you tackle very difficult tasks. You've done it very proficiently, very professionally. And so I publicly want to commend you for a job well done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. If you want some help with the Black Panther thing, just give me a call. Yeah. All right, moving on to student board member report.
Okay, so I would like to emphasize from what I said last month in my student report. On behalf of the Beloit Memorial student population, we would encourage our school board to look into changing our lockdown procedure. As of right now, sitting in a corner in silence isn't going to keep us safe. On another note, I would like to know if there's even a possibility to bring more anti-bullying education, in addition to be consistent with it. Overall, I would like to add to the fact that in our schools we lack consistency in terms of discipline, consequences, plans, and intentions. It's just something to think about. Thank you. It's short.
Thank you. There is pending legislation requiring school districts to do and look at procedures for lockdowns and run drills. So I'm anticipating that that will come. I also would like you to take back a message, kudos to the students who participated in the walkout and staff who assisted with that, administrators who also, I know, worked hard on that. Logistically, I could not make it to every school doing a walkout, but I was able to drive past Aldridge, and I was in the background at the high school. Our students were respectful. They were participating. They did a great job, and they represented Beloit well during that, and I just want to thank all of you for doing such a great job of planning that and executing that. You made me proud, so thank you. Anything else from student? Does that conclude that? All right, thank you very much. I'm going to move on to committee reports. Finance and Transportation, please. I am doing things out of habit. Our Finance and Transportation Chair is absent tonight, so we will do that update together at the next committee, at the next business meeting. I'm going to move on to Curriculum Instruction, please.
All right, thank you very much. I was not in attendance due to the flu. And so the first thing on the agenda was achievement, this early literacy and community literacy. It was essentially what Rochelle presented tonight, so we got the opportunity to see that. Next up was the mid-year achievement gap reduction reports. Mr. Bonds, Latricia Johnson, and Jackie Jolly, along with the principals from the elementary schools, presented a summary of their achievement gap reduction efforts, along with data from MAPS testing. The data essentially indicated, in literacy, the data showed our weakest areas to be the second and third grade, so targeted coaching and interventions have been put in place to address this. Ms. Jolly indicated that math showed the same 2 grade levels having difficulty, and has also put coaching and interventions in place for improving those places. Beloit Memorial had an academies update. Ms. Jolly, along with Carol Campbell, the high school principal, Janae Banks-Wilson, who is the assistant principal, provided an update on the progress towards implementation of college and career academies at the high school for next year. Those academies include 18 exploration pathways that cover nearly 300 different careers. The 3 academies are ACMES, Automotive, Construction, Manufacturing, Engineering, and Science, Bach, Business, Arts, Communication, and Hospitality, and HHPS, which is Health, Human, and Public Services. They've started scheduling beginning with freshmen, as they are the first group to come up, and typically scheduling starts with them. Ms. Campbell explained that families would be educated about this along the way, and it's a way for students to explore what Beloit has, what is available to them in the real world. After that, we had 2 CTE course proposals. One was the approval of a course called Craftspeople with Character for the summer school session. Another was actually changes in names. So the Foundations of Early Childhood Education is a course change proposal, and then the approval of Early Childhood Education also there was a course change proposal, and both of those were made to put in alignment with Black Hawk Tech for dual credit options. So that's all we've got.
Thanks, Chris. Policy and Personnel, please.
It's good to have you back, Vice President Klobuchar. Thank you. The Policy and Personnel Committee met on February 26th. The meeting only lasted 7 minutes. There was the approval of the agenda. We approved closed session items, and then we came up with a list of future items, and the meeting adjourned at 5:10 p.m. The Policy and Personnel Committee met on March 13th. There was approval of the agenda. We approved the February 13th and 26th minutes. We added a Todd literacy interventionist. That was federal Title I dollars. There were a number of policies for first read. Policy 522.31, supervisory nepotism. We tabled policy 523.1, employee physical education, and layover of policy 523.6, identification badges. We looked at policy 443 and 447, dealing with the code of conduct. What was moved to the full board was revisions of policy 143, official board representatives, policy 185, standing board committees, policy 185.1, fiscal committee, policy 185.2, which is student committees, and policy 185.3, the staffing committee. And I went fast through that because Jen did a good job talking about that earlier on. Policies for second read, we looked at policy 522.2, Rule 1, guidelines for reporting employee misconduct, policy 522.6, sexual harassment, and policy 522.6, Rule 1, discrimination complaint procedures for final reading. The administration submitted the diversity, inclusion, and recruitment plan. There's a couple of things they need to add to it. They're going to bring it back at the first meeting in April. There was a discussion about the exit interview data and discussion. The board approved to continue with its current existing plan. And there was a legislative update. Board Member Charles updated the members on a bipartisan effort to make schools safer with funding at state level. And a number of future items that the committee is going to be looking at is associate's versus bachelor's degree for substitute teachers, hiring and promotion and transfer policy, and a compensation workshop. The meeting adjourned at 6:56 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. I am looking for a motion on the consent list, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent list, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to business action items.
President Andrus, I move that we approve Crafting Business with Character course proposal, Foundations for Early Childhood Education course changes, and Early Childhood Education course change proposal. That would be B, C, and D.
President Andrus, I would like to say I think really this is probably the only time the public gets to learn about what we're doing, and it might be good to just briefly describe each one because there are changes in curriculum. And, you know, I don't know, I think it would be good to hear it.
So Chris covered some of these in the summary, so jump on. Do you want to take it or you want me to kind of? Oh, I'll take it. It's okay.
I'm happy to just read it.
Nah, I got it. Craftspeople with Character will be a summer course offering for our students and an opportunity to become mentored with people in the workforce, and it's half a credit over the summer school. Foundation of Early Childhood Education course change proposal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is just a name change to be consistent with what Black Hawk Tech is already offering. The Early Childhood Education course change proposal is a name change as well. Again, we're trying to align ourselves so that we are consistent with what Black Hawk Tech is offering, and we can offer a seamless transition, enabling hopefully for us to have more qualified early childhood educators in the workforce. For those of you who don't know, we need them because we're 2 classrooms down at Head Start and we need those people there. So any questions on that discussion? Excellent. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
What are we moving A through D?
We are moving B, C, and D.
B, C, and D. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I am on to Todd, Title I Reading Interventionist.
I'll move approval of the reading interventionist for Todd School, and this is paid for by the school out of Title I funds, correct, Dr. Williams?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item F, 443, 447, Student Code of Conduct and Discipline. This is a first reading.
I'll move approval of this, and I'd like to explain that this is, what we did was we added definitions of different types of bullying and harassment. This was not really an official review of the Code of Conduct, but it is the addition of these definitions, and it has to come through as a policy first reading. And I'll move approval.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Policy 523.6, Identification Badges, Employees, first reading.
Move approval.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
President Indris H., the committee policies, Jenny mentioned them, I mentioned them. I think they're pretty clear, the new standing committees. I move approval.
Do I have a second?
I'll second those.
All those in favor? Aye.
Weren't we going to discuss 185 in our meeting that got recessed?
Well, there's four 185s.
Just 185.
But there's a point 1, point 2, and point 3.
Well, just the plain 185 number 2.
Oh.
Could we leave that off and discuss it in the when we pick up our meeting again after this one? 185. There was a change that I proposed to it. Or unless you want to talk about the change now, but it's kind of lengthy.
So, Jenny, help me out here. Did I have a second on that? Yes. And we voted.
But we didn't ask for discussion, so I wonder if we could not have voted yet.
Could we discuss it when we recess back into the special board meeting? And if there's any changes, then the board could vote to make changes on that at that time?
So we're approving it now or tabling 185?
We already approved it now. So I am hoping that what we can do is go back to the meeting,
Okay,
and
it
if there are
can be
any
changed.
changes, then
Sure.
we can
Thank
make
you.
those changes as part of a separate motion. Moving forward, Policy 185.4, Infrastructure Committee, final reading. I don't know if you...
I'll move approval.
We need to make sure that we move approval with the changes discussed in our earlier meeting.
Yeah, as came from the earlier meeting with the changes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Policy 185.5, Communication Committee, final reading.
I'll move approval of policy 185.5.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Policy 522.2, Rule 1, Guidelines for Reporting Employee Misconduct. 522.6, Sexual Harassment. 522.6, Rule 1, Staff Discrimination Complaint Procedures. This is a second reading.
Move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item L, exit interviews.
Point of information. I don't understand why that would be on here because it was we didn't approve it at committee.
What you did was you made a recommendation that we not go with the RFPs that we received before.
Okay, so therefore I move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, please. About a year ago, we talked about using a third-party exit interview firm. It was following the forum where we heard from teachers, the town hall meeting where we heard from so many teachers, and so many did mention that they wanted a way to do exit interview or exit surveys through a third party. I did a lot of reading over the weekend, and I think that it's important for us to know that retaining quality teachers is the most important thing we can do in our schools for our students. We talk about being for student achievement. We talk about trying our best and trying everything we can. But then we're just shoving this away, and I'm not sure why. Because keeping teachers is the most important thing we can do. That's proven. So I mean, there are other things in the home that will make or break a kid's education. But in the school, keeping quality teachers is important. Do you know we do something called looping in our district, where you have the 4th grade teacher who, after teaching 4th grade, moves up to 5th grade and teaches 5th grade. Well, if she leaves, those kids don't have that benefit of looping, and that is a benefit. When you think about relationships in a child's life, I mean, we heard today Dr. Vasaria talking about the most important thing for a kid is a relationship. They build relationships with these teachers, and then they leave. And I'm not blaming the teachers. I think that we don't do enough climate surveys, and we don't get enough exit surveys done for whatever reason. But exit surveys are valuable if they are, if the teacher feels that they're confidential, or the employee feels that they're confidential and that they're going to benefit the system, then they want to complete them. They have to know that we're going to do something with them. We've been doing exit surveys with our staff. We haven't been doing anything with the information. As a matter of fact, we get the information when we ask for it, when we ask to talk about this subject. I don't understand why we're skipping over something as important as this. And I want to say that, and let me add this too, we're recruiting an HR generalist. And maybe one of the reasons is we have so much darn work for our HR department to do right now. Maybe if we could slow down the turnover of staff, we'd have less work in the HR department. And speaking of work, replacing these teachers and other staff, it cost about $20,000 to replace an employee. And I thought that was high, but Ms. Salas, I did the research this weekend. That's not high. That's about right. It can cost about 50% of the person's salary to recruit and train. So we're looking at, to replace the hundreds of people that have left us since 2013, we're looking at a cost of about $5,600,000. Now, I ask you, this cost for the third-party exit interview firm that will also do climate surveys, I think just for the exit interviews it was $10,000 a year, and you add a little bit more if we're going to have them do climate surveys too. We could also have them do surveys for parents, why they take the kids out of our district or why they chose to come to our district. But this is going to be a valuable tool if we would just realize that we need the information, and it's going to be the best thing for our kids.
Dennis.
Out of all due respect, Board Member Charles, we have to be careful in the language that we use. The board did not shove this aside, and the board did not step over this. This is the second time that you've come to us and we've told you that's been approved twice, that we feel comfortable with the current process. Ms. Salas said that she felt comfortable with the process. And I also want to say that since you mentioned that when we had the town hall meeting, what was unfortunate about that process is we never talked to the students and we never talked to other people. And so you have to be careful in the comments that you make because you don't want to mislead people. I don't believe any of us have shoved this aside. We've given it a great deal of consideration. We don't agree with you that we should do an exit interview and give this to a third party. It is private. Ms. Salas informed us. We're not stepping over this. And so perhaps rather than you keep coming to us, perhaps it may be most appropriate that you let it go because it failed twice, and let's move on to other important issues in the district.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that. I'd like to respond. Board Member Baskin says this failed twice. No, it didn't. Twice we said we were going to give it another 6 months to try it out. Another 6 months at the current situation. We haven't had any better results. We're getting about a quarter of the teachers that leave are completing the exit survey. I'm still getting contacts from teachers saying, would you please reconsider this? And I don't think, well, the only time I say that we really neglected this is when we went over the 6 months. But no, when I say that we're shoving this aside, it's by saying, no, we don't want it. When looking at the data shows that this is extremely important. It's extremely important for student achievement. And continuity in our schools is important for kids and for our staff. It also leads to a better school climate when people stay longer, when there isn't the constant turnover. For $10,000, when you look at $5 million, you guys, I had our student here check my math. $5,600,000 to replace these people. We've got a $10,000 expense that we could take a gamble on and then see how that works after a year. Get the data back, do something with it. Find out why we're losing so many people. I'm just asking you to reconsider this. I know committee recommended that we don't go for it, but I think it's the best thing for our school district.
I call the question.
Hang on. First of all, what I want to say is that the board has, on a 6-month basis, checked in on this data and brought this back forward as per what we agreed to do. The cost, just to clarify, the cost for the exit interviews, those bids varied drastically depending upon what was brought in. The other thing that I think that we have discussed as a board and will continue to discuss is the benefit of an exit interview versus the benefit of spending that money in climate surveys, and really focusing on our teaching staff who are here and hearing them and getting those accomplished and acting on those climate surveys. So this came back to the board as part of proper procedure to consider and up for vote. We will continue to look at that data on a regular basis. I reviewed that data over the weekend, and I think while maybe the numbers are not low, I would point out that I think that it gives you a very good idea of why people are leaving, because I found them to be very open and honest in terms of the reasons why people were leaving.
And you understand this company will also do the climate surveys?
I do, but
okay.
That is a bid that this board needs to entertain in a more organized fashion in terms of what happens, because a climate survey, what makes a climate survey is what you do with it afterwards. So a lot of that work is not about administering the climate survey. It's taking a good hard look at what that company will do for you afterwards, because that's when the work starts, not during, not before, not after a teacher leaves, because once they've gone, it's too late, and we've got to get ahead of this, and an exit interview is not going to help us get ahead of this, my opinion. So I'm going to honor your call, the question. I'm going to entertain, there's a motion, and
Takes a second.
Do I have a second?
A second for call the question.
I'm sorry, what?
Second for call the question.
Okay, let's vote on the call to question first. May I have a motion one more time, Dr. Baskin, to call the question? All right, is there any further discussion?
I would like to possibly ask that instead of denying this right now, what about if we table it and let the incoming committee, the staff committee, people that really are affected by this, look into it and study it and make a decision about it?
I would argue that regardless of what we do tonight, it would be my expectation that the staff committee would tackle this in earnest. Okay. And so I don't know that I would expect, regardless of our vote, that the charge of that staff committee will be to explore. The primary charge of that committee would be to explore the hiring of qualified staff and the most important part of retaining those staff. And I think that that committee would do a much better job, I'm hoping, than even an exit interview firm would do for us, because it's made up of our own community members, staff, and students. So I'm back to the motion and the second. So Jenny, can you remind me who seconded? Wendy did?
For the exit interviews?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion by Dennis and Wendy seconded.
All right. Can you read back for me one more time what that motion is so we're very clear?
Policy Personnel Committee recommends that the full Board of Education continue using the current exit interview tool and review again in 6 months.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, moving forward, I have personnel recommendations. May I have a motion, please?
Move approval of the personnel recommendations with the adjustments made.
Point of clarification, Michelle, help me, because we had to adjourn our special board meeting prior to going into closed session for the personnel recommendations. Yes, ma'am. So we're good, right? All right.
I'd like to ask a question. There were part of the things that we adjourned on. We were going to go into closed session to discuss some of these things as a full board, as the policy committee had the opportunity to. And I would like to table this until we go back into our other committee.
Actually, I said move approval.
Did anybody second it? Okay, I don't have a second as of yet.
I think we wouldn't have the same opportunity that the policy committee had, because this was on our agenda to talk about.
I will second the motion.
Any discussion?
So, President Indris, as I understood it, we dealt with the personnel recommendations, and it now leaves policy and personnel and comes to the full committee, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Could I ask
I call the question.
Point of information? When we were in the other room at our previous meeting, policy and personnel went into closed session and had some very heated conversation about this. And I understood that I'm not on the policy and personnel committee, so I have a lot of the same concerns and even some additional ones that I held off on. I understood that we were going to be able to talk about those in closed session as a full board. I don't think it's right that your committee got to go into closed session and the full board doesn't get to go into closed session, because I have some concerns about some of the things on this list. And I think we should table it. We missed part of our meeting up there. We went into recess.
No, excuse me, President Indris, there we go again, misinforming the public. All board members who are here was at that meeting. We can't give the indication that only 2 or 3 board members went in a room and discussed and decided something. All board members were there.
I'm sorry, I don't belong to that committee, and I was not allowed to vote on your committee.
I'm gonna call this back to order, please.
Lori, it's on the agenda for the previous.
I'm
gonna
call this back to order. So I believe by procedure, Michelle, help me out, that if it goes from the committee to this board, to the televised meeting, correct? Okay.
However, Lori, if I could draw your attention to number 4. Sorry, that's on policy and personnel. I've lost my agenda for our other meeting. I mean, do we discuss right now in open on television our concerns? Because I will. I just don't know if that's the way you guys want to do it. Okay.
I would argue that legally, no.
Okay,
so
well, can we table it?
I am struggling a bit with the procedure here, so give me a minute to clarify with Michelle. Help me out in terms of procedure. We have no procedural reason to take this back into the special board if we are now here, correct? So I guess what I would say is I would entertain the motion here and vote. I would agree with Siri on this point. Sometimes technology is way smarter than we give it credit for, honestly. So here's what I'm thinking of doing is that we vote on it here. We can continue on with the discussion in closed session should the board choose. the board could reverse a course by vote, correct? Help me out, Robert's Rules, people.
Could I help you
Yes,
out? Maybe,
you're right, correct.
Maybe it'd be very complicated, because when you vote on a contract, you're not supposed to rescind. But we could leave off the two that were discussed in policy and personnel and approve the rest and go back into closed session to discuss and approve the other two. Or discuss and vote on the other two. I think there was a very critical piece. I'm asking all of
Point
you
of
to
order.
remember.
A
There was a very
precedent
critical
interest,
piece
how you
that was
interpret
left
it
out.
is correct, and I don't think we want to deviate from procedure.
And here's where I'm leaning is we voted as part of the special board meeting on the positions to be filled. So it is my belief that the main point of discussion earlier was solved by the public vote on the positions being filled.
No, because they weren't. We didn't vote on the people. I made it very clear that we were voting to proceed, but not necessarily with the people that are being recommended.
Okay, I'm gonna proceed as planned. I'm gonna go ahead and take the motion to approve the personnel recommendations with the second. All those in favor?
Discussion?
Aye.
Discussion?
Discussion.
Okay. So, first of all, we'd have to say what we're, are you saying that we're going to proceed with the change that was recommended from policy and personnel?
Yes, we're approving the personnel, as we normally do, we're approving the personnel recommendations as they were completed by the Policy and Personnel Committee, because that is the procedure for bringing them forward into the full board.
All right, then forgive me, but I have to talk about this, because the posting of the HR position, it was posted to start July 2nd. That was the posting. We were supposed to receive that posting along with the candidate's resume, but we didn't. But I did go on Weekend and pull the posting. It was July 2nd start date. We're now being told that we want to hire someone to start in April. We have an executive director of human resources. And please, I don't want to be interrupted. Just let me finish, Dr. Baskin. We have an executive director currently working here. I don't know why we would pay for two, or how we would explain this to the public, that we need two executive directors. I want people to consider this, and I also feel very strongly that Ms. Harrell spoke at the beginning of the meeting and said this was a board-approved committee. I don't believe this was a board-approved interview committee. It should be, maybe. Maybe we should change that, but it wasn't board-approved. As a matter of fact, without naming any names, there was more than one personal friend of the candidate that's chosen on the interview committee.
Pam, I'm going to call this to order at this point.
No, I'm not out of order. I'm not out of order.
Call this to
But I'm in order. I'm discussing, and I had the floor. Now you can stop, but you know what? It's not fair to me, because I have the floor and I have not spoken for 10 minutes, and I'm trying to say why I object to voting on this right now.
I'm going to ask you to be very cautious.
I'm very cautious.
About
I'm not naming any
comments.
names. I think that it was an unfair process. I do. And it might be a process, and it might have been a good process, but were we really fair to the other candidates? Were we? Are we being fair to our employee who is still here? How can she go out and apply for a job when we've already replaced her? How can she get a job?
Okay, I'm going to call this to an end. I'm going to
imagine, Lori, if it were you and you were going to apply for a job.
I'm going to
and it said you've already been replaced.
Okay, I'm going to publicly remind you that the board directed the administration to fill this position.
With a July 2
at
start
a board
is
meeting,
what it was.
The board directed, 1. 2, the interview process that was followed was per policy or per recommendation that's in that equity plan, is my understanding.
Another thing I'd like to bring out is that our policy says, it's a policy question, our policy says that no candidate can be hired that doesn't meet the minimum. This candidate does not meet the minimum of 3 years experience of executive director. She doesn't.
All right, we're gonna move on and take this vote. All right. So
can I just say something quick, Lori?
Yes.
Okay. I sat on that committee. I'm not sure, and correct me if I'm wrong. Does the board usually approve the panels that?
I don't believe so. I wanted to correct what the
so the
citizen
process
said.
was definitely a process that was followed from start to end. There were several people that sat on that panel, staff, community members, board member. No, there was no students. But the candidate coming forward was unanimous among everyone on the panel. So there was a process, it was followed, it was executed, and there was a job
But she
offer.
did meet the minimum
okay,
requirements.
I'm going to
per
call this
policy.
to an end because this discussion does not belong in this time and place.
That's why I asked to
so
have it in the other
again, does not belong in this time and place. We have a motion and a second to approve the personnel recommendations as modified by the Personnel Committee. Michelle, can you read back to me who the motion was made by and who the second was?
Good move to approval of the personnel recommendations, Exhibit A, as recommended by the Policy Personnel Committee, and Klobuchar seconded that motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to discussion items. Do I have any items of interest for consideration at future board meetings? Seeing none, I'm going to go on to announcement of future board meeting dates. Committee meetings are April 10th and include finance, transportation, and property, curriculum and instruction, policy and personnel, and the next business meeting will be April 24th, 2018. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.